How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to do my review of Stranger Things Season 2. But before I get into this review, I want to thank everybody who has subscribed to my channel. You've helped me reach my goal of 150 subscribers. Now I'm aiming to get 200 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing and helping out my channel. I'd really appreciate it if you do. Now with that out of the way, let's get into this review. Stranger Things Season 2 is another great season in this series, in my opinion. It's got everything I liked from the first season, and they expand upon the story that was set up in the first season. And I love what they did with it, with this. They have this really big, like, shadow monster that's in that sort of other dimension that they sometimes go to. And I don't know, it's a cool looking thing. It's supposed to be like a shadow, but it looks really cool. And in this season, it sort of possesses Will because he still has some connection to that with the events that he went through in the first season. So he ends up sort of getting possessed by this thing, and there's some very great scenes with that. And honestly, I thought in this season maybe the best performance was from the kid who played Will. He did a great job in this. I thought for me he was a standout in this season. He did a great job, but everybody I thought did a good job in acting. The characters were, a lot of them were expanded upon, given more depth to them. I liked the character Steve better in this season than I did the first one. In the first season, up until the end, I just found him to be a sort of generic character who was just trying to get into his girlfriend's pants, pretty much. In this one, he's actually has more depth to him. He's not just about that. He actually cares about her, and you feel bad for him when she doesn't really feel the same way. And he's trying to do good things, and at the end of this season he develops a nice relationship, mainly with the little kid Dustin, and the other kids as well, but mainly Dustin has a nice dynamic there, and I think that's probably going to be expanded upon in the third season. I'll find out, but I really liked what they did with that. Some of the new characters, like Max, I thought was really good. I liked her character. Not a fan of her brother in this season. He just, I don't know, he wasn't meant to be nice. And that actor, I think, did a really good job at doing that, but I just didn't care for the character whenever he showed up. I wasn't too interested. There wasn't a whole lot of depth, I thought, into why he is the way he is. There's a bit at the end with his father. Clearly there's not a great relationship, but there are just certain things about this character I just didn't really like, and it's not really explored why he's like that, which I wish there could have been a bit of time explaining why he's like that. Maybe he would have been more, you can understand why he is the way he is, but there wasn't much of that. And another character I loved in this, and kind of sad about because he tragically died at the end of the season, spoiler alert, was the character Bob Newby. And I really liked that because in the first season there was a bit of a Goonies vibe to it, and Bob Newby is a Goonie from the original movie. He's like the main Goonie from that movie. And he's also in the Lord of the Rings movies. But it was cool having him in this. He was actually like a very just likable guy. And so you're really sad when he died in the, I think, his second last episode. So that was really sad. But overall, I loved what they were doing, expanding that. What do they refer it to? The underneath or the underworld? I'm drawing a blank what they call it. But that alternate dimension with that like shadow monster that possesses Will. And in this one there's stuff at the Hopkins laboratory place again, but it's not sort of the evil organization that it was in the first season. While they're still trying to cover up what happened, there's sort of the head guy, at least head guy that the main characters deal with in this season, actually more of a nicer guy. Again, while he's still trying to cover things up, he's not evil like the main guy from the first season. So I enjoyed them doing something different with that. It just wasn't a repeat of the first season. I did enjoy that. For me though, this season's not quite as strong as the first one, and part of that is this season feels just a bit more scattered, and which is not totally a bad thing, but it's because a lot of the character dynamics or groups that we had in the first season are sort of split into smaller groups in this one, so there's more cutting back and forth to different smaller plot lines, so it just feels a bit more scattered. While I enjoyed most of those plot lines, it did feel just a bit more scattered because there's more plot lines this time. And I think for me the weakest point of the season was actually the storyline concerning 11. And at the start it was fine, like you could understand, like she's with Jim Hopper here, she's being kept in this cabin out in the woods where no one's going to find her, because there's still people that are, if they know she's alive, they'll go looking and bring her into the laboratory or whatever. So you understand why Jim Hopper's keeping her there, not letting her leave, but you can also understand why she's not happy about that. So that was fine. But then in the second half of the season, they expand it. She goes looking for her biological mother, which that was alright. But for me, the problem was, whenever we were at the other storylines, my mind was never thinking, oh, I wonder what's happening with Elle. And there was that full episode without her. And I was never thinking, oh, I wonder what's happening at that storyline. I completely forgot about it because I was invested in everything else, not too invested in that. And then there is one whole episode dedicated to her towards the end, where she finds somebody that she was in the laboratory with when she was really little, who has similar powers, different, but they both have powers. That whole episode was just okay. It was definitely the weakest of this series so far for me. That episode for me did not push the overall story of the season forward at all, and it was more for character building, but sort of the conclusion that 11 comes to by the end of that, you're like, I don't think you need a whole episode to figure that out, and I don't think you needed this story to figure that out. I feel like that could have been figured out pretty easily, but that's just me. So that episode did drag it down, especially because the episode before that, I was very invested in it. It was getting really exciting, really intense. So I was like, I'm ready for the next episode. Then I just totally detoured to this side story with 11, and I'm just I lost momentum for it. But then the episode after that brought it back. It was nice afterwards when 11 came back and she and Mike were reunited. That was very nice. I hope there's a bit more, I guess, apologies to Max in the next season, because I felt really bad for her. Mike didn't like her. 11 didn't like her. Even at the end when Max went up to shake her hand to introduce herself, Elle just totally brushed her by. I'm like, I feel bad for this character, so I hope there's a bit more stuff for her in the next season that's a little nicer. Not to mention that brothers of hers is not a nice person in this show. But other than that, like I said, it's very good. I guess another storyline I wasn't too invested in, but it was fine, was the one with Jonathan and Nancy when they go off to find this guy to sort of break the story about the Hopkins laboratory, where they inevitably have to fib it a bit, not be completely truthful what happened, because people wouldn't believe it, but get something out there. That part was just, again, just fine. It wasn't as interesting for me. Everything with the younger kids and Hopper and Joyce and Bob and the stuff going on with those kids and the Hopkins laboratory and everything with the Will being possessed, all of that was great. And for the most part, the show focused on that. So when it did cut back to Elle or that other storyline with Jonathan and Nancy, it wasn't too bad because they weren't as focused on. So overall, I thought this was another very good season. Not quite as good as the first, but really great. I'm going to give this season an 85%. I'm very excited to see season 3, see what that one's like. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to start watching that maybe tonight or tomorrow, but I expect next week I could have that review out. But also stay tuned for some of my other upcoming reviews. I'm hoping to see Thor Love and Thunder tonight, so I'll have that review up either tomorrow or Friday. As well, I'll be continuing my James Bond movies reviews with the 1967 version of Casino Royale. And as I've mentioned before, I'll be watching Chip and Dale at some point. I'll get to that one. So stay tuned for those. And again, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, be sure to subscribe and help me reach 200 subscribers. And until my next review, take care, everybody.